Jansen and the Chocolate Fudge Mystery, Chapter 6. Scram! A tall, thin man with a light brown beard came out of the house. He was wearing blue jeans and a dark green shirt. The man ran across the back porch and chased the cat away. Cam stood up. She looked straight at the man, blinked her eyes, and said, "Click!" Then she quickly sat down. The man watched the cat run off. He picked up the juice carton, cereal box, and the few other groceries that were on the porch. He put them all in the large box and carried them into the house. "That's not Mr. Pell," Mr. Miller whispered. "I'll bet he's a criminal, and that house is his hideaway. We should call the police," Eric said. "I can't keep standing here. I'm tired," Mrs. Miller said. "Let's go inside." Eric and Mr. Jansen followed the Millers into the house. Cam continued to watch the back of the yellow house. The door opened. The tall, thin man came outside. He was carrying a broom and a large, empty, black plastic bag. He looked around. Then he walked down the steps of the back porch. He put the empty milk carton in the bag. Then he swept away as much of the milk as he could. The man turned and looked right at where Cam was sitting. He stood there for a minute. Then he went into the house. Cam waited. When the man didn't come out again, she joined Eric and the others in the Miller's kitchen. Cam washed her hands with soap. Then she looked to see what the others were doing. Cam's father and the Millers were sitting by the table, drinking coffee and eating cookies, chocolate fudge bars, and rice cakes. Eric was reaching into a large paper bag filled with newspapers. "The Millers recycle their newspapers," Eric told Cam, "and the pickup isn't until tomorrow. I'm looking for the paper with the Ding Dong headline. If we find that, we'll know when the man went into hiding." Mrs. Miller was eating a rice cake. She put it down and said, "I think he's the Pell's nephew. Mrs. Pell told me how hard he works and how he hates to be disturbed when he writes." "Is her nephew tall and thin?" Cam asked. "Does he have a beard?" "Maybe. I've never seen him." Eric emptied the bag of newspapers onto the kitchen floor. The daily newspapers, a few supermarket flyers, and the weekly community newspaper fell out. "Here it is. Here's the Ding Dong paper," Eric said. "Now I'm going to look for a report of an escaped criminal who is hiding somewhere." "What's the date on that paper?" Cam asked. Eric showed her the masthead. "It's Tuesday's newspaper." Cam looked through the pile of newspapers on the floor. She found the Wednesday newspaper and began to look through it. Mr. Jansen put down his cup of coffee and asked Cam, "Why are you looking at Wednesday's paper?" "If that man went into hiding on Tuesday for something he just did, then it would be written up in the next day's paper on Wednesday," Cam explained. When Eric heard that, he closed his newspaper. He looked through the Wednesday paper with Cam. "Some stores will deliver groceries," Mrs. Miller said. "If the Pell's nephew is busy writing, he may not have time to go shopping. That's why there was a box of food on the back porch." Cam turned the page of the newspaper. Mrs. Miller went on. "Many years ago, I tried to write a story for a mystery magazine, but as soon as I sat down to write, the telephone rang. Then the mail was delivered. Then it was time for me to eat lunch. The Pell's nephew probably just doesn't want to be disturbed. That's why he's pretending that no one is at home." "Look at this," Eric said. He pointed to a column with the headline, "Crime Watch." Eric picked up the newspaper and read from it. "In a daring robbery today at the Midtown Savings Bank, a teller was handed a withdrawal slip for $10,000. You must fill in your account number and sign your name," the teller told the man. The man showed the teller a gun and said, "You have just 1 minute to give me the money." The thief is described as tall and thin with light brown hair. "That's him. That's the man hiding next door," Cam said. Number 1. The man came out of the yellow house because he was so excited to see the cat. A, true. B, false. The answer is B, false. He was not happy to see that cat. In fact, the first word of the chapter was him telling the cat to scram, which means get out of here. Number 2. On page 35, what does Eric suggest they do when they realize it's not Mr. Pell in the house? A, call the police. B, go up and say hello. Or C, run away and hide. The answer is A, call the police. Right away, Eric suggested that. He did not want to mess around with a potential criminal. Number 3. On page 37, what is Eric trying to do to help solve the mystery? A, read the old newspapers from that week to look for clues. B, he's not trying to help because he wants Cam to stop being nosy. Or C, calling the Pells to see if their nephew is staying at the house. The answer is A. He's looking through the old newspapers to look for clues. He started by looking at the Tuesday paper, but then he switched to the Wednesday paper to see if there were any articles about crimes that had been committed. Number 4. Through most of the chapter, what does Mrs. Miller think is going on? A, there's definitely a criminal inside the yellow house. B, the Pells are home from vacation. Or C, the Pell's nephew is staying in their house and he's pretending no one is home so he can focus on his writing. If you said C, you are correct. Mrs. Miller is really convinced that nothing is the matter and he's just trying to write. She even talks about a time she was trying to write an article for a mystery magazine and she could not focus. So she really thinks he's just in there trying to get his work done. Number 5. In the newspaper, there is a story about a $100,000 bank robbery. A, true. B, false. The correct answer is B, false. This is a tricky one because there is a story about a robbery, which means something getting stolen, but it's not $100,000, it's $10,000. But that is still a lot of money. And last one for today, number 6. Who does Cam think robbed the bank? A, a famous criminal from their town. B, the man she saw come out of the yellow house. Or C, Mr. Pell. The correct answer is B. Cam really thinks that she has enough evidence to show that the man coming out of that yellow house is probably the guy who robbed the bank. And that's our last question for today. Check in soon so we can keep it moving and read chapter 7. Woohoo, almost done with the book. Can't wait to figure out this mystery. All right, good job.